also prop you a little closer to home. And Councilman Dennis Hancock, a Republican running for county executive, is here with us tonight. I want to ask you about that. You're the one member of the county council running against this online sales tax, but you're also running for a chance to manage the budget and the hole that it would fill. So you're campaigning to inherit a problem that you're rooting to keep? Help me explain that.
Yeah, I think that, as far as Prop U is concerned, and the reason I didn't support it was simply because I don't think that the St. Louis County government has done a good enough job of reining in its spending. I think that if we've done a bad job of spending money and then asked the voters to give us more money to spend, that's tough to justify. And there was really no campaign for it or against it that I'm aware of.
Very limited.
Yeah,
there wasn't a whole lot of money in terms of, we've seen a lot more money in other races.
Right.
But if it fails tonight, and we're going to have some results here shortly, county officials, some of your colleagues, say that police budgets, what's left of the Rams reserves, would be the first things to take the hit. Parks, things of that nature. You want the job here, so what goes first under an executive Hancock? Not the mechanism or the way you would debate it, but what's a line item, somewhere you'd cut?
Well, I think that we have to look at the entire budget. What are we spending our money on? And I think we have to prioritize those things that we have to spend money on, such as police protection, roads and bridges, things like that. So I think that what we really need to do is do what I did when I was the mayor of Fenton. We looked at our budget when Chrysler shut their doors. That represented about 15% of our budget. And so we had to find 15%. And we were able to do that without raising taxes and without doing the things that other governments tend to do. And so we were successful at doing that. And I think we can do that in St. Louis County.
Congresswoman Crockett, we're glad to have you with us here. Of course, many of our viewers may know St. Louis has been home for you. Texas is the state that sent you to Congress. But I want to talk about that video because a lot of people are going to ask about it. You appeared at this private fundraiser for Wesley Bell. Now, you didn't officially use the word endorse or endorse him there, but a simple question to you. Do you want Wesley Bell to win tonight, yes or no?
I want whoever Missouri 1 chooses to win. Listen, I was there. Wesley Bell is currently my colleague. Obviously, I served with Corey, so I know both of them. And I meant what I said at that time specifically because right now, what we are spending the vast majority of our time on, specifically on the Oversight Committee, is we are working on the Epstein files. And the fact that he has prosecutorial chops has been very helpful. If we want to see cases that are going to be built in the way that they should be built, I think that he absolutely is bringing a lot to the table. Obviously, St. Louis sent Corey to Congress not once, but twice. And they sent her to Congress because they believe that she was right in that moment. In fact, she took out an incumbent when she initially got there. So this is about the moment that Missouri 1 finds itself in and what it is that they want. Whomever wins, God bless them.
Okay, so I want to ask you about the money in this race, too. We've seen a little bit less of it than we did last cycle, but FEC records show roughly $18 million combined between the last two cycles in AIPAC-aligned money or pro-Israel group money behind Wesley Bell across these two campaigns. You've seen that money move in Democratic primaries across the country, like the Senate race in Michigan tonight. Is that money good for the Democratic Party?
I don't think it's good for politics in general. Let me be clear. I don't think it's good whether we're talking about Democrats or whether we're talking about Republicans. This is why we have to be very careful about who it is that we put into office. The rules of the game right now allow for this money to pour in an unlimited way. We also know that the Supreme Court in their most recent decision as it relates to dark money and campaigns didn't tighten anything up. Instead, they decided that it would be the Wild Wild West and that it's actually going to be even easier for candidates and campaigns to actually coordinate with this money, which right now they don't have the ability to coordinate. So for me, I think that we need to get on the same page, whether you're Democrats or Republicans, and we need to say that big money needs to be out of politics. But at this point in time, we know that that's not what the rules are. And so when these outside groups come in, they tend to have an oversized voice. And the hardest part to me about the big money, besides the fact that it's unlimited, is the fact that they don't come in and say, I am in this race because, right? Like, they don't say that. That's not what they say. They just go ahead and use that money to amplify the candidates of their choice. Now, I do want to be clear about something that I think is getting really lost in the conversation as it relates to AIPAC. I understand why people are extremely emotional about the war, whether we're talking about the war as it relates to Israel and Gaza, or whether we're talking about the war in Iran. War in and of itself, or if we're talking about what's happening in Ukraine, war in and of itself is never a pretty thing. And I don't know who actually should be for more death, especially death of innocent folk. I think the issue that we really need to understand is how much time do we really spend in Congress on Israel? I can probably count on one hand how many votes we've taken as it relates to Israel as a whole. But if we start talking about things like SNAP benefits, if we start talking about the National Defense Act, if we start talking about us trying to shut down this unconstitutional, unlawful war, if we start talking about all that we've had to do as it relates to getting subpoenas and transcribed interviews for the Epstein files, there's a lot of things that we do and we spend our time on. And I'm gonna be perfectly honest, it is a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of the amount of time as it relates to dealing with Israel. So I know that there's a lot of conversation because there are candidates like you talked about, the Senate primary in Michigan, as well as in this primary, both this time as well as last time. But overall, if someone could just spend the day in the life of a member of Congress, we honestly don't actually spend that much time on Israel.
And Congresswoman, Cori Bush has said in 2024, AIPAC, I'm coming to tear your kingdom down. You just passionately said this money really has no place in politics. So I want to go back to the question before the last one Mark asked, when he was asking you, do you want to see Wesley Bell or Cori Bush win tonight? You said, I want to see what Missourians want, whatever they choose. But what do you want for the party? The center or the so-called maybe squad? I mean, where do you want to see things go?
I actually don't see it that way. I know that Bell is probably painted as a super centrist, but I think it's the fact that you put the two of them together, right? Like, compared to Cori Bush, then yes, he is center, or he's more right of Cori. But in general, I mean, I think the only thing that I can think about that he's not actually voted in a way that she probably would have voted on is probably any Israel vote that we've taken. So honestly, if you look at their records, as I'm thinking, I mean, now granted, he wasn't there to deal with the infrastructure vote and that kind of stuff. And I don't know if Cori would go back in and under a potential Speaker Jeffries, kind of take these stances again, because we're talking about how she operated when there was a majority. We don't have a majority, we're in the minority. So it's a lot different, and there are strategic things that people do. I know recently she said that she doesn't regret her vote. I know that a lot of people at home are looking for roads and bridges, especially in light of the storm that came through. So infrastructure and kind of the basics is what everyone wants. And I think no matter who you are, I think that whoever is elected needs to really make sure that they're focusing on the bread and butter issues.
Congresswoman, thank you. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in just a moment.